Welcome back to What Are You Thinking podcast. So glad you're here today. It's going to be an incredible show. I'm Ron Lewis. It's my lovely wife, Lynette. We're so happy to be here, and our guest today is Germaine Mikhail.
You said that great. She is a dear friend of mine for many years now. We're excited that you're going to get to hear from her today. Thank you for joining us. We always promise you on this podcast a time to challenge your thoughts that might hold you back. The theme of our podcast is change your thoughts, change your life. The power to change each one of our lives is often just a simple, nuanced thought change. And today we're going to chat about some of those ways that we do that. So Germaine, welcome. We are so happy you're here.
Thank you. It's always good to be with friends.
Yeah,
Well, we are live in Tulsa, Oklahoma today.
Here we are at Oral Roberts University, and you both went to college here, undergrad, right?
Yes, actually grad for you, right?
Grad for me.
And undergrad for me. And you, Germaine, grew up, though, in Egypt. Is that correct?
Yes, I was born and raised in Cairo, Egypt. I stayed there until I was 17, and then I moved to the U.S. to start my undergrad, and didn't know that I was going to be still here, but here we are.
Wow. Well, we have many viewers that we know on the Alkarma TV part of our broadcast that are from the Middle East.
Well,
and from your
what I just found out is that when I was we both have been to Egypt 2 or 3 times. And my first visit to Egypt, I was assisting one of the most amazing pastors in all of Egypt.
My pastor.
Pastor Sameh.
Maurice.
And who was before him?
L'Assis Manis.
Right, so I was with Pastor Manis. And I had dinner with Pastor Sameh.
Love it.
Incredible. And so back in those days, I was serving my friend Nader Iskandar, and it turns out that I was assisting, and you were in that wedding as well, and you know my friends, and I know your friends, and so all of us are just a few degrees away from knowing everyone in the world, right?
Oh,
it's true.
And the fact that you were there, I was there, that was 20 some years ago, and here we are again today. So. Well, this is great.
We're so grateful you were willing to come talk to us. Germaine and I were at a Whole Foods having a get together a couple months ago, and just had the most stimulating, fascinating discussion. We always have great moments like that. But as we were chatting there, I kept thinking we have to bring you on our podcast, because what you were explaining, what we were talking about, I believe, is so prevalent in the water right now, so to speak, that there are a lot of people, and this is really your expertise. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice and your degree so that people know the place from which you're coming from as we share some thoughts today?
Absolutely. So I took a very unique road to my education. It was all God-led. My undergraduate is in psychology, and then I went to Bible school. And then I came to ORU, and this is where I got my master's in marriage and family therapy. And then I moved on and I got divinity master's, and I waited a little bit. That's when we started chatting about New York. And then I came back and I got my educational leadership in higher ed. So I have a little bit of different fields. And right now, what I do is literally the intersection of all of them coming together. Only God can do that.
Wow. Explain what that looks like on a regular basis. So you have private practice.
Yes.
Where you do therapy.
Yes.
And then you also are an educator. You're teaching here at the university.
Yes.
So you're dealing with a variety of people and ages and all of that. It's got to be fascinating.
It is amazing. And I never thought I would be a professor. I've always wanted to be a therapist. That was the dream since I was a kid. So that never changed. But becoming a professor was just one of those things where the Lord takes you on a very unique journey and then puts you in that position, and it falls into your lap. And it's the job I never wanted or never knew I would have. And it's the job that I never thought I would say that I can't live without.
Wow. Yeah. Now that is so powerful, isn't it?
Very powerful.
I mean, how many, I often say the phrase, different than what I thought, better than what I imagined.
Yes.
And life can be, even for those of you who are listening today, you may not like where you are right now, just stay the course, because so often it's a stepping stone and a bridge to getting us to that place where, just like you said, I would never trade it.
No.
Because what do you love, Germaine, about what you do, and what are you hearing from young people in particular today? Some of the struggles, some of the anxieties that they're facing. What's coming across your path right now that might give hope to our viewers, and some tools perhaps that you know about?
Wow. Well, what I love is walking with the students. I think that is the story of every professor here at the university. We love our students. Without them, I wouldn't be a professor. I would just talk in an empty room. It's the students that make the journey really worth it. And one of my favorite parts is walking with the students, helping them form a career path that they are passionate about, that fulfills God's purpose on their lives, but also helping them learn how to think. And that's one of the challenges that I'm seeing today, is that our students either don't know how to think or are self-censoring to a point to they're suppressing their own thoughts a lot of the times. I have never experienced this in the US. One of the things that drew me to the US is that freedom of thought and critical thinking and being able to think outside the box and outside of the rules and the regulations. And I always push my students to think deeper than what I'm just saying. And oftentimes when I ask them questions, I find them sitting, calculating what they have to say, and self-censoring. And that's been really challenging to watch and really interesting to see the change in our culture now, where freedom of thought becomes a liability rather than a freedom enjoyed.
Wow. So you think people are afraid to really say what's on their what's in their minds and what's in their
I
thoughts?
think some people would blame that on education itself, going back
right?
into the early. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing and reading, that that students tend to get in the box early on, and they go through rote memory, but they're never really challenged to speak up, and there's a growing insecurity and fear and shame and all of these things that are part of the human condition, right? So by the way, I did my undergraduate degree in psychology also.
I love that.
Right. So
I didn't know that.
Well, right. So we had that in common as well. And yet I was in with that group of people who just wanted to try to figure out what's wrong. How did I get to be this messed up?
Yes.
Wow.
And so then we wanted to study and get to know, the thoughts of everything from Freud all the way to Jung, all the way to, cognitive, behavioristic, and all the different models that you can imagine, right? So we have this in common, and I feel like that a lot of what you're describing really could be coming from the growing, increasing insecurity, thanks to the digitalization of the world, thanks to social media, thanks to those things. I think that for some people they can flourish, but others get held back.
Yes. And going back to your question, some of the struggles that we're really noticing is that freedom of thought has been a liability at times, but also students are bombarded with information at all times. Forming their thoughts have become challenging, but also labored. And one of the things that I love to do with my students is to challenge their thoughts, challenge their emotions, right? There is
Good.
a challenge, even the thought that, the expectations that are put on them, saying that God can have a different way for you, that you don't have to follow specific roadmaps that have already been formed for you, but you can get your instructions from the Lord and go on that unique path. And with that, you need to form resilience. And that's one of the challenges that I see. Resilience has become compromised because this is a generation that is so different than how we grew up. I grew up, when the internet was not even a thing, right? I remember when we were talking about the internet as a new invention and a way to connect the world and a way to find information. And I found it interesting, and it was a tool to help us learn. but it wasn't where we lived. We still had to form relationships. We still have to navigate the world in a basic way. And with that comes challenges and hurdles. But it's during the hard times that we form resilience. It's not during the time of ease. And because of the ease that technology affords us, sometimes we lose a layer of resilience.
Yes. And
Because
the
we don't-
power to persevere.
Yes.
Yes, I was thinking about that. We think of the value of customization and the value of options.
Yes.
It's like going, I hear people describe this when they come from other nations even. You go to grocery stores in the United States and there are 15 mayonnaises
Yes.
and 60 choices of coffee, whatever it is. But options can oftentimes create anxiety
Yes.
because now how do I choose? Is there a right choice, a wrong choice? I think so often social media portrays an idealism, whether it's romance, marriage, child rearing, how to eat, how to look, how to be fit. And if you're constantly bombarded with visuals that are different than what your reality currently is, rather than let that be inspiring, it becomes debilitating.
Yes.
Now I'm impatient because my spouse doesn't treat me the way this couple just did when they took a trip to Italy, or you could name the scenarios over and over. And I find the lack of resilience and perseverance often in this generation, where we're all tempted to want that we see now
Yes.
instead of waiting sometimes 10 years, sometimes 20 years before that visual might become our reality. Is that comparable to what you're talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot count how many times the Lord would give me a promise. And just because we're so eager, I want to live the promise that I receive. And you think it's going to be a year down the road,
Yes.
6 months, 2 years, if you're really patient. And then reality comes and it's 10, 15, 20 years
It's true.
down the road. And how do you keep hope when hope deferred makes the heart sick? But yet, the one that you trust, the one that gives the promise. And all of a sudden, you're in that internal battle. Do I trust the Lord? Because He's never failed me. He's not about to start right now. But what do you do with the in between? I've noticed that when I was young, we all have this moment when we first encounter a situation that is difficult, right? Remember the first situation that you really struggled with, and you felt like the world was coming to an end. It's like, when am I ever going to get out of this situation? My life is over. And you have all these thoughts that come to you. And then you get over that situation. And then it's a time of peace, calm, and you get into another one. And all of a sudden, the world feels like it's just crumbling again. But what happens over age is that you learn several lessons. The first lesson is, this too will pass. That lesson or that phrase has gotten me through so much. Because I grew up knowing how to persevere. But what do you do when the perseverance needs to last? And then you need to regenerate a second wave of perseverance. And then there's another wave and another wave. And how do you protect your heart from growing weary?
Or bitter.
Or bitter. Or question God and His faithfulness, right? But it's also, what I've learned is that it's not just about perseverance, but it's about how you wait. It's not just waiting to get to the other side. This too will pass. And when you get to the other side, and we wait and we live in the until. I have made that mistake so many times. I wish that's not my story, but I've lived for the when this happens, I will be. And the Lord had to interrupt me and say, what happens from now until then? How do you live that time is just as important as getting to the other side, getting to your victory.
So I would like to know about your upbringing then and how you learned to grow in perseverance, resilience. This is really a big deal. And this is it seems like it's more and more of a gap now.
Yes.
There's so much is just given to us and we don't really have to work or stress or whatever. And I think that's just such a part of maturing and growing up. So, okay, so you come from Egypt.
Yes.
And This network that we're on, Alkarma TV.
I know.
Hey,
right?
this is your people.
Hello, my people. Love you.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
It was inshallah, as we should say.
love that.
Yeah, it's the will of God that we're here,
Yeah.
and you. So you grew up in Cairo.
Yes.
Every time I've been to Cairo, it's like a party till 2 a.m. But there's big naps in the middle of the day in that heat.
Love it.
It's really a fun culture. Incredibly hospitable,
Yes.
loving. All of my experiences in Egypt have been fantastic. Yeah.
I loved it too. Although the time that I was there, most recently, the revolution started right then. I was at a hotel on a women's tour through a group of American career women that were over there. And we were leading some sessions, and I was directing one of the sessions. And then we heard when Ron was hearing on the news that the revolution had started. Did they call it the revolution?
It was in Tahrir Square. Yes, that uprising. What was it called?
I think the world called it the Arab Spring.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I'm not sure that
Arab
that's
Spring.
the best terminology.
And so I was at home watching this on the news, and we would talk every night. And I had to decide, because I knew that she didn't know. I had to decide, should I tell her this, or should I just not tell her, or should I get on a plane and go to Egypt and extract her? I mean, no, really. I mean, like then, because we didn't know what was going to happen, because there was the stink bombs going off and all the stuff that was happening then. And so when we would talk at night, I'd made the decision, I'm not going to tell her because it's going to ruin her experience there if she knew. So that was any way I did it, it would be not the right decision.
Right. And eventually, I mean, it all worked out. But
that was like 3 days later.
The group I was with was very protective and
But they got you out. It was a big deal. They got you out at 4 a.m. in vans that took you directly to the airport. It was middle of the night. It was,
yeah, we flew to
scary.
London. But I will say my memories of Egypt are far more fine than that, because we got to go to the pyramids, of course, and see just the culture there, and just love our viewership here on Alkarma TV. And of course, we broadcast on podcast platforms in the U.S. as well. But speak a little bit, if you would, Germaine, about the experience of coming into a culture that you don't know and being a part of something new, what that was like for you. And what did you have to go through in just learning to know yourself in a land that was new to you?
So the story is really one that I didn't expect, right? You talk about that a lot. I grew up in Egypt, 17 years, finished high school there. And when I decided to come to the US, obviously there was great support. My family was behind me. My friends were supportive, even though they didn't know right away. And it really happened so fast. So I just had to pick up and go. And when I came here, this is before you can just call anybody in the world for free. So every time I would have to phone home, it would be charged by the minute. Do you remember those days?
Yes,
of course.
Yes, we had to call like the calling card, and you had to punch in all the numbers before you're able to connect to your family. So with that came a lot of support from a distance, not because there wasn't a desire, but because of proximity. And that sort of took me out of a very supportive environment where I loved my pastors, I loved my church, I loved my friends, I loved my family, and I was by myself here, navigating a world that my parents were not as familiar with. So I didn't have guidance, again, not because there was no desire, but there was no knowledge.
Where were you? Where did you come?
I came to Texas, where Jesus lives. My famous saying. I came to Texas for my undergrad, and then I went to a Bible school there, and then I came here
to Tulsa.
To Tulsa for my graduate work. So during that time, I had to really rely on the Lord. And I remember one time in those moments where we feel so defeated by our circumstances. And again, there was nothing defeating about my circumstances, but when you're alone over and over and over, navigating the world at the age of 17, that's young.
It is.
And carrying the responsibility of your future, I got to a moment where I said, Lord, why did you do that? I could have been with my friends in the same university, and we would all be colleagues.
Did you speak English?
Yes, yes.
So you learned English in Cairo.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I was in an English school, so English wasn't the issue as much as going to a British English school and then coming to Texas. That is a cultural shock in of itself.
Right,
Right.
it is. It really is.
But I asked the Lord, why did you do this? And his answer was really interesting. He said, you wouldn't have experienced me as father, as friend, as shepherd, to the same level and to the same degree had you stayed where you had your support group.
In your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I had to come here
Wow.
and learn how to rely on the Lord. And through working that muscle over and over and over, you learn to persevere. You learn to push through. You learn to trust when trust seems to not pay off right away, but it has a timeline of its own, when waiting has a timeline of its own. And this is where I learned how to persevere and push through. And
So how about in your childhood? Would it be this similar? Did you have any hardship as a child, or was it all just seemed like really easy and nice? And
I was really blessed to have a really great community. I
Okay.
really
your family?
I'm thankful for that. My family, my friends, my church family was like family. It is multi-generational. Now it's huge. But at the time that I was attending, we knew our pastors. We knew all the families there. The pastor's granddaughter was one of my best friends growing up. So we just were very tight growing up, and we had that support. But school was hard. School in Egypt or education in Egypt, you're really competing for few spots at the college level with a lot of people, because it is a dense and populated nation. So everybody is looking for those specific spots. And education became very competitive, especially when you get to high school. And that was really difficult. That was an area where I had to learn how to endure and persevere. And I was one of the very few classes that our last year of high school really determines which college you go to. And I was one of a trial run generation where we did 2 years instead of 1. So the challenge lasted 2 years instead of 1. And that was a good training ground for sure.
I can see where you would be such a great educator now, though, for young people, because you can look at a generation of those who are struggling, who may not feel like they have enough answers,
Right.
or wonder if they're going to have what it takes to make it. And you can look them in the eyes with great, sincere empathy and say, you can do this. You can get through this. You can make it through the challenges that you're facing. Can you talk about the power of community? So you come to a new state, a new country, a new nation.
Yeah.
What was the power of new community? Because you mentioned in your background, you had strong community, you had
Yes.
family and natural network. Now you're transplanted. I think perhaps a number of our viewers even have considered making a move to another nation, making a change in their life. And it feels lonely to do that. But how did that work for you when you show up in a new place? How did you make the steps in developing a new life for yourself?
One of my best friends always says something: building community is intentional, and it's hard work, but it's rewarding and it's essential. It is not a luxury that we have. It's an essential part of life. We are not made to live life alone. So when I came here, you go to college and you meet so many friends, and I didn't know a stranger, so anywhere I go, I make a lot of friends right away. And I would have friends, but the challenge with that is you move from one university to another, from one school to another. And every time you do it, you have to restart over. So I've started my life over, I don't know, maybe 6 times, so it
Wow.
feels. And but everywhere I go, I try to build community. And the more you do that, the more your community expands and it builds on top of one another. And as you know, relationships are for a season, a reason, and a lifetime. But I've seen God's faithfulness in always sending me the right people at the right time, at the right season that I needed them, because they had to substitute for what I didn't have because of the distance. So if somebody is thinking about coming here or going to a different nation, I would say one of the most important things is to go about building community. The same way you go about you building a career, the same way you go about tending to your family, it's intentional work, but it's rewarding. I mean, look at us right now. It's been 19 years in the making, and
Yes.
here we are, still connected through living in different states, probably most of those 19 years.
Right. I love what you just said. Some friendships are for a season,
Mhm.
some for a reason, and some for a lifetime.
It's good.
And sometimes it's all three, but oftentimes it's for a season. I think of that even in the workplace. I was pondering that this morning for some reason when I was getting ready, putting my makeup on and everything. I was thinking about how over my now 40-year career, how few of the projects that I remember. I hardly remember any of them.
Yeah.
Don't even really remember the pain that went with some of those seasons, but I remember all the people. If someone brought back a name, even people I worked with casually, I would remember their faces. And that's why majoring on the people, even in jobs that we don't enjoy, even in places we'd rather not be, even with difficult bosses or tough coworkers or dysfunctional family members or seasons of dysfunction, remembering that in the end, when we look back, those relationships, good and bad, will be who we remember. And there are lessons and there are gifts to take from each one of those places.
And to add to that, I think it's really important for this generation to focus on building healthy communities with the age where everybody is at your fingertip. But how many people are really walking with you during the seasons of life? And oftentimes seasons of life will fluctuate, right? There are good seasons and bad seasons. They are challenging seasons and seasons of triumph. Who is walking with you becomes really important. One of the things I see in my students is that they try to do this life alone. And it's so
You see that? You actually see that?
Absolutely.
Or they feel lonely.
They feel lonely. And I think we know that in the US now we have an epidemic of loneliness that has been declared. So people are having a hard time finding true connections, right? So even though you're surrounded by so many people and you have so much engagement on social media, you can still live life alone or feeling lonely, misunderstood, not connecting. There's a trend that I've noticed that people try to escape the difficulty of life. We have what they call now a human or an adult pacifier, right? I feel anxious, I pick up my phone. I feel lonely, I pick up my phone. I connect to people and it gives me the impression that I have community. But I don't have this where we can touch, where we can sit together, eyeball to eyeball, saying, hey, I am here for you. What do you need? How can I support you? And it's during that time that we build resilience. Resilience even is built within the context of relationships. But if I use my human pacifier to push all my emotions aside, I find myself to be lonely in a world full of people. And that is actually harder than being lonely alone. Being lonely alone in an isolated environment, gives me an understanding why I'm lonely. But when I'm surrounded by people, and yet I feel lonely during this journey, it becomes harder emotionally. The idea that I can escape all negative emotions, I think, I don't know if you remember, I am a student of culture because I came here from a different culture. So I'm always looking for trends and patterns. How do Americans do life? And I remember when they started saying positive vibes only. And the first thought that came to my mind was, this is horrible. This is bad. This is not going to end well. And here's why. We've lived for a while now. I'm in my 40s. So you live and you learn that positive vibes only is the desire, the wish, but it's not something that I should go after because life comes in seasons. And if I don't accept the hard seasons, I can't really celebrate the good seasons. Our brain is not made to filter our emotions, in categories. I'm gonna only feel all the good emotions, but the bad emotions I'm not going to experience. Actually, I either experience emotions or I suppress them. So to the degree that I feel my emotions, I'm going to feel the entire spectrum. But if I want to experience true joy, I need to be familiar with grief because I have nothing to contrast it to otherwise. But if I suppress grief, I also suppress the level that I experience joy.
That's fascinating.
So the idea that I can push away negative emotions, difficulty of life, escape it, actually is making the problem more. People are more anxious, they are more depressed, they are more hopeless.
So how do you do this? How do you handle your emotions? And people do it in so many different ways, but I'd like to hear your perspective on that. Let's say somebody is really in depression, clinical depression, where they need help or they need medicine or whatever. How can this person take a step out? Because I think the problem is it's another pandemic. And I think people are really suffering. I really do, emotionally.
Yes.
And until you really learn how to manage your emotions, you're going to be looking for other things to take the place of it, or whatever some people call it, like shopping.
Escapism or sedation,
or
of
go
some
buy
sort.
something, or just spend your whole life on the internet, just surfing.
Scrolling.
Right. So tell us, what practically, talk to someone as if they are going through this level of depression right now. What would you tell them?
Wow. If you're going through a time of depression, one of the very first things that I say is lean in. And that is the one thing that people don't want to hear when they're experiencing the toughest of emotions. How do I lean in the very first thing that I want to run away from, right? But it's in leaning in that I focus on what is happening now and not the hope of what if, right? It is important to keep hope and to know that this too will pass. This is only a season. We live long enough to know seasons of heartache and seasons of triumph. So we learn that it will pass, but for it to pass, I have to face it. So leaning into my emotions becomes really important. Calling on community becomes another piece because we can't go through difficult life situations alone. Difficult seasons are not meant to be experienced alone, in isolation, right? So we pull on friends, we stand by one another, and then we learn how to live with the depression until I learn how to overcome depression, because it's a journey. I remember the first time I heard Dr. Bucher, he's one of our deans here in the school, he always says, trust the process. First time I heard that, I was mad, if I'm being honest, because I didn't like it. Trust the process means I have to wait because it's a process. It's not an overnight fix. It means I have to persevere. I don't want to persevere in a difficult season. I want to persevere in a fun season, right? Trust the process means it will be incremental and it will be in progression, that I learn how to overcome whatever that I'm facing at the time. And I didn't love the phrase, but I learned that if I trust the process, lean on friends who will speak the truth and not pacify me, which is a lost art, by the way, in our society today.
Speak the truth, but not pacify.
Yes, that is a lost art.
Speak the truth to me. Speak the truth, because I remember, again, let's go back. Can we go back to the early 2000s? Let's do that. In the 1990s, where I grew up, a true friend was measured by, can you tell me the truth? Even if it's going to hurt my feelings, can you tell me the truth and walk me through the process? In 2000, there was a trend where, why can't you be supportive? And we used that phrase when we wanted to do something that my friends would not agree with, did not see that it was in my best interest. People who cared about me didn't believe that it was even biblical at times. But we would say, why can't you just be supportive? And all of a sudden, it meant, why can't you just agree with me rather than tell me what I need to change? that was another point where I said, this is very dangerous. There were several moments in culture where I said, this is dangerous, right? A wound of a friend can be trusted. That's what the Bible says, right? I'd rather hear a rebuke from you, Lynette, than to hear it in public, right? To be disciplined in public.
So you're saying it's okay to confront your friends who are what? They are saying the wrong thing. They are, what are you saying?
Who are maybe friends who are, let's say I'm having a negative thought or a thought that is not helpful to me. I'd rather have you come and correct my thinking
Okay, that's
and
important.
align it.
And that's okay.
than
Now,
to say yes.
who establishes those rules?
What do you mean?
I think it's very important to say, hey, you're just living in a ditch right now.
Yes.
I want you to lift up your eyes. Matter of fact, interestingly, this morning I'm reading. I like so many people. I walk through the Bible in a year, and this morning was 1 Kings 18 about Elijah, who was having a bad day. And he was complaining, and he was saying, I'm the only one. Turned out there were 7,000 others, but he was like, I'm the only one, and he's complaining, and he's upset, and he's depressed. He was definitely depressed.
Yeah.
So he had to get out of the cave, and God brought him out. There was no one that he could talk to except God, but God brought him out of the cave as he was, and he got him to begin to see a different perspective.
I think one phrase that comes to my mind when you ask, who sets up those terms, I think it's very important, and I always say this should be top of mind when, if I was to ask anybody watching or listening, who in your life tells you no? Not who tells you yes. There will always be 15 cheerleaders because it's fun to cheer somebody on and say you can do it. But who tells you no? Maybe to challenge, to say that there might be a better way, or have you thought of this or thought of that? True love doesn't just say yes, they say no. We think of that as a parent, of course. We don't, loving my 10-year-old twins is not just giving them everything they ask for. And they put up a fight when I tell them no. But I ignore their fight because I'm in for their good. And that's where so often, but we get to an adult age and we want actually counterfeit comfort. It's not really comfort. It's temporary sedation to the pain. But what I heard you saying is lean in. God, what are you trying to teach me from this pain? What can I learn? The Bible, the scripture, the reason that we three live by the Bible as our guide, as the playbook for our lives, is because the Bible has a way of bringing comfort and also conviction. You actually feel more loved by a parent who disciplines you than by someone who just lets you run free. It appears to be a big happy party, but when those choices lead us to destruction, we realize they didn't care enough to tell us no. And so I love when you describe that, and I think there is, even now in the culture, there's a tendency to say, why can't you I have my community and they all believe in what I'm doing, when actually, when the people who love us the most and are the closest to us would disagree with that community, then we need to take notice, because all the comforters are not usually the truth tellers, and we have to really watch for that.
It's okay to be challenged. I think this is how we grow. We don't grow in comfort. We grow when we are challenged.
That's huge.
That's huge.
That's really great. That's good.
That is so good.
So
one other quick story,
please.
just 2 days ago, I was talking to a friend. This is somebody who I've watched her endure years of a painful marriage. And when she was in those years, often those of us around her would say, just don't leave. Stay with him, don't leave. It's going to get better. Someone who we would ask the question, who in this particular family is going to break the curse of divorce? Divorce is a relentless foe. I mean, when divorce enters into a family story, it takes a lot of fortitude at some point in the generations to say, divorce stops here. We're not going to choose divorce. Now, there are exceptions, of course, to where where it's a viable alternative, and there are reasons for that. But so often in our culture today, I believe that people are just impatient. They want the change now. They believe they deserve better, and maybe you do deserve better. But this friend I was talking to is over 20 years in, and she was describing to me something her husband did for her, and we both laughed, great joy, laughed together, because we remember the years where she thought that would never happen, and she's so glad she stuck it out. It changed the course of her marriage. It changed the course for her daughter, who's now has had parents that stuck together. And it is through really the power of God that she was able to persevere. But she's so happy she did. And someone watching today, that's the word for you. Check with your people that you're closest to. I'm not sure that divorce is your answer. It may be your immediate comfort, but God may be up to something longer term here, bigger, and he will give you the graces to sustain and the courage to be brave and to be able to live in a desert for a period of time in order that you and your children and your children's children can enter into their promised land. There was a generation that went through the desert, but there was a generation that came out of the desert and into their promised land. And may that be us. May we do the hard work that it's going to take to change the family story. Often in one generation, the entire family story can change. And I don't know who needs to hear that today, but we're here to tell you, you can do it.
It's good. I'm thinking right now about just in Scripture, how so much of Scripture is about getting out of one place into another. The very word Exodus, ekodos, means the way out, the road out, the path out, just getting out. And a lot of people get stuck. And there was that time where Moses actually went to the Red Sea, and he realized then that all the Egyptians were coming after him. We're not leaving you out of this discussion.
Thank you.
But they were all coming against him.
Yeah.
And then this was the time where there was no more journey because he was stuck. And that's when he looked to God and he said, only you, God. And I think for many who watch, they tend to think that this is the end, and it's not. There's always a way out. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. And this is a reality that we oftentimes come to our end in ourselves.
Yeah.
We think that we can't take it one more day. We feel suicidal. We feel neglected. We feel sad. We feel like this is the end of something. When God's saying, no, this is your finest hour. And maybe you've heard this before and you just don't know how this works. But for me, and what Germaine is saying about how we handle our emotions, we do so through a community. And my immediate community is with this woman right here. I tell her pretty much everything. And as a man, sometimes I just want to fix it and move on. But sometimes you get stuck in something and you really do need to talk to somebody. And it feels great when you can let somebody share your burden. And it's even better when we can be the ones who are sharing the burden from somebody that we know and we love. But also in our community, so many communities leave out the main thing. And you know what the main thing is? The main thing is having a shepherd.
Yeah.
It's having Jesus in the mix, in the life, with the community. And a lot of people get stuck in their community, and the community may not even know it. Everybody in the community could say, oh, you're fine. I see that tumor's growing, but you're fine. You'll get through this, or whatever it is that they're stuck on. And they don't have someone who could come in and say, hey, you have a serious issue here. You need to see a specialist. You need to see a doctor. And I think for me, a lot of times is I need to go directly to Jesus and honor and own my own situation and realize I can't blame anybody else anymore. It's my fault. But the good news is that God is a forgiving God. He doesn't leave you in that place forever. He wants you to know that there is such a thing as a second chance. I've lived through it. I've experienced it. And you can too. And I think there are people right now who are watching and listening who really feel like they're at the end of the road. And you're having your Moses moment where Moses said, only God can deliver. Only God can do this. And God says, Moses, put your staff down. The sea is going to open up. There's going to be a way through. And not only did Moses make it through, but an entire nation made it through. The millions made it through. And don't be let down right now. Just know that God is on the way, and he's going to find a way, and you will get a breakthrough out.
Yes, absolutely. Germaine, why don't you do this at this point right now in our discussion? Can you look into the camera and just say a prayer for that person who has felt like they're at the Red Sea? Ron described. Imagine someone coming to you and with maybe suicidal thoughts, with a sense of hopelessness. Can you look at the camera, speak to that person, and then feel free to just go right into a prayer of hope for that person?
If right at this moment you are feeling hopeless, you're feeling despair, I want to let you know that this too will pass. And as we go through times of difficulties, we are promised a shepherd that goes with us, that walks with us, that sends us a helper, a comforter, that never leaves us nor forsakes us. That is his promise. So if you are struggling right now, I encourage you to look up where our help comes from. So pray with me this. Dear Lord, thank you for who you are. Thank you for being my Father, and thank you for loving me. God, I thank you that my situation right now is not a surprise to you, but that you have a way of escape. And if there is no way of escape, you promise to go with me and to make every rough place smooth. I give you this situation, I give you this time, and I pray that you would help me get through, endure. And Lord, you promise that even in the times where despair is available and is present, that your joy can still be found and that your peace can be experienced. So would you give me your joy and your peace and the trust to make it through? In Jesus' name, amen.
That was a powerful prayer. Praise God. And I know that many of you are reaching out right now. And just keep coming back to Jesus. And I'm sure you have other practical thoughts about this as well.
So you ask, how does somebody address depression at this time? We lean into the emotions. We rely on our community. We know that it's going to pass, but we also seek help. We seek help to develop practical skills, coping skills. How do I go through depression? If I am clinically depressed, I might need medication, but medication is not the end all be all. I also need to talk to somebody who is an expert to walk me through times of difficulties.
And why do you think so many people would call that a stigma? Something like depression we want to shove it under the carpet, or when people are going through things and they have to take medicine, there's so many people are say, oh no, you just have to have faith or whatever. How do you deal with situations like that?
Are you specifically addressing the church culture or cultural in general?
I think it's both.
I think both, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the church culture, obviously, there's the idea that you can pray everything out and you can Bible and verse everything out. And if you have Jesus, you don't need anything else. And yes, if you have Jesus, you don't need anything else, but even Jesus needed his friends. He came and he had 12 close friends. And when he struggled, he went to the Father. Would you let this cup pass? Right? We all need to seek out help. Seeking out help does not mean that Jesus is not enough. It just means that I need somebody to show me how to do it better. In our culture, I think now seeking help has become normalized. When we were growing up, that was not the norm, right? There was a huge stigma with it. Why do you need to go to a therapist? Why can't you talk to us as a family or friends? Or why can't you do it alone? Because sometimes we need an extra layer of support and we need expert help. As a therapist, I know how to walk you through depression and anxiety. And now that we have brain-based therapies and cognitive behavioral therapy, and there are different ways that we can address the same issue, and we can even find the underlying issue of what's happening right now. Why can't I overcome what I'm experiencing? Sometimes has a deeper issue, a deeper layer, and I need to look at somebody who is going to be compassionate, who will listen to me, and who will help me with practical skills. So there's no shame in it. Actually, the shame is to struggle alone.
Wow, I love that.
That's good.
I think about even being here on the ORU campus brings back memories of the year I became a resident advisor. I started realizing some really debilitating tension in my life. Now I had 30 girls on a floor that I was responsible for, and I felt like I had to be the perfect RA for every one of them. And what started happening was I started going through anxiety that I couldn't even cope with. I was putting on weight. I was crying all the time. I couldn't handle it. And here on campus, they have a counseling center. And I made an appointment with a counselor. My parents had gone through therapy themselves, and they said, go find someone. Well, in 6 sections, and sometimes it's 6 years for some people, and there's no right or wrong formula. But that counselor who sat with me began to what I describe pull back an onion, which is layers of an onion. One layer led to another layer, led to another, and you said another statement a minute ago that's so powerful, is you learn techniques as you go to an expert on how do I decipher what am I really going through? What's really driving my anxiety? I'm not just overly anxious and I need to fix it. I need to understand some of those underneath things. And things I learned in that season, had to get off campus for a while, had to take myself out of being an RA for a while just to get to the bottom and really get a layer of healing. And that was first of numerous times I've been to therapy over my life. But the techniques and the strategies I found during that season, I still use in my life all the time. It's no different than going to a specialist if I have a sports injury, or if I want to improve my golf game, or if I want to become a better athlete or parent. We never put stigma on that. Of course, we want to aspire to the greatness that we can be. The same is true in mental health and in emotional health and spiritual health. And so I love that you talk about that. You spent your whole professional life equipping yourself in that. And there is a gift in doing that.
And I'm sure you've helped a lot of people. And I commend you for that.
Thank you.
You know, having been a pastor for 40 some years, we did put a priority on counseling. And I forget all the technical terms for all of the different, there's so many different strategies. And I think that everybody needs to find their path forward in this. I have been to therapy before. I spent a week with a guru, a Christian therapist who was very well seasoned, and everything in me wanted to not do it. Everything in me wanted to say, no, no, no. But I realized if I don't walk through this, then I am cheating myself, and I am putting limitations on myself and even God. Yeah. Because God will comfort us and help us, but He sometimes will direct us to be humbled and allow us to humble ourselves so that we can really get the help that we need. And so I recommend it. Now in New York City, where we live part of the time in New York City, and as we're in New York City, it's almost like everybody has their therapist and their dog. I mean, everybody. It's like that's a thing.
Yes.
It's like, well, here's my therapist. My therapist says it. And so there can be a dependency on that's not healthy. And what I found that when I went to see this particular guy for a week, and it's like he knew my script. He knew me because he prepared, I prepared. I did it the way that I was supposed to do it, which don't cheat yourself on this, because you don't want to have a therapist for your whole life. You want to have Jesus to be the front and the center, but you have these people who are special, like what you were just saying, like you might want to be a better speaker. Do you go to Jesus to be a better speaker? I mean, really, Jesus is on the throne. Of course, you can learn from Jesus, but there might be a coach who can actually walk you through that. So we're coming to our end on this absolutely wonderful conversation with you. And it really makes me happy to hear what you're doing, what you've learned, and how you help people. Because human emotions are very difficult to deal with.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning that, Ron, when you went to that week of therapy, and you've been to many different therapies over the years, it was following a divorce that you had.
Oh yeah, I was going through it.
You were going through your own. You had a divorce, and we've watched together in our marriage God reshape the future and in a very redemptive way. I mean, you can go through a lot of pain, and don't stay though in the guilt and the shame and the pain and the disappointment, because while we want to make good choices along the way, God also is such a redeemer, and he takes everything that the enemy meant for evil and he will turn it for the good in the end. So Germaine, we're so happy to know you. We're happy you are our friend and that you got to be here with us today. It's been a joy.
It's always a joy to be with you. Always.
We love and appreciate you, and we love and appreciate you too. And you can get all the help that you need. It's out there, it's available, and God will never let your tears be wasted or your pain be wasted. There's always a reason. And may you go from this valley to the top of the mountain, and may God be with you. God bless you. We love you. Thank you for being a part of What Are You Thinking podcast.
We'll see you the next time.